So now we're going to talk about the modification or refinance process. I'm not going to spend too much time on refinance. If you have equity in your home, if you have good credit, if you're still paying on time, traditional refinance options are available, and most of us know how to do that. Okay, so I'll touch on it just a little bit. But the first step to a modification or refinance is you need to contact your note holder and find out what options they have available to you. But before you do that, I think it's important to calculate all the numbers and be prepared before you call. Sometimes when you call the lenders, they're going to ask you questions over the phone, right there in the phone call. Sometimes they're going to send you a worksheet they want you to fill out. Sometimes they may ask you to go online and fill out that information, but you want to be prepared either way so that you know what those numbers are and they make sense before you contact your lender. Okay. One of the biggest pitfalls I see homeowners making is they either overstate or understate their income and or their expenses. So it's important that those numbers add up and that they make sense. If you say that your expenses exceed how much money you make and it's too great, then they might not do the modification because they'll say you can't afford it either way. Okay, so it's important to know what those numbers are. And the other components to success is you have to be persistent and you have to be committed to the process because it takes a really long time. And as overwhelmed as all of us probably are, the companies that are doing these are as overwhelmed, if not more. They're getting hundreds and thousands of calls every day, and they're not real well versed in this yet, so the process is pretty long and tedious. Like Charlie said, sometimes it's 45 to 60 days, sometimes it's 6 months. So I started the loan modification on my house in January, and it wasn't finalized till June. And the paperwork was actually not processed till the end of July. So it does take a pretty long time. And so anytime that they ask you for something, you're supposed to send something, it's important that you follow up, you check back with them. You know, every time you call, you're going to get a different person. That's just the way it is. Sometimes if you get someone that doesn't seem very knowledgeable or competent, call back. Call back in 30 minutes, call back 30 minutes, speak to 5 people if that's who you have to speak to. Eventually, you'll get to someone who has a little bit more experience, and you can tell those people that are reading from a script and those people that actually know what they're doing. Okay, next slide. I want to mention, I think Charlie touched on this a little bit, even if you're working on a modification, if you're delinquent on your payment, don't be surprised if you get that foreclosure notice. Don't be surprised if you get past due notices still. Don't be surprised if you're still getting collection calls, the lender's calling you, you tell them, they might call you and tell them I'm working on a modification. They look up in their system, they see that you're working on a modification, they say, okay, thank you. And then 2 days later, they call you again. It's big companies, different departments, they're working on usually 2 tracks simultaneously at the same time. The foreclosure process and the modification process both take a really long time, so they usually don't want to stall either one of them. We have been able to postpone sale dates on foreclosures if the modification is in process and it's looking good. We can do that over sometimes 2 weeks, sometimes 30 days, and we've been able to postpone them more than one time. Okay. But they don't want to stop the foreclosure just in case you end up not qualifying for the modification or you end up not taking it. Okay. Not all lenders participate in modifications, but some lenders, while they don't participate in them now, they may be participating in them later. So even if you call them now and they say they can't help you, it doesn't mean that you might not call in a month from now, 2 months from now, 3 months from now, they might be able to help you. So I started contacting my lender a year and a half ago, and a year and a half ago, they could not help me. And a year ago, they could not help me. But back in January, they could finally help me. So don't give up. I almost did. I was ready to walk from my house, and I got a letter saying we want to help you. I'd gotten lots of those letters, though, by the way. So for some reason, something told me, call one more time, what can it hurt? And I did, and they were able to help me.